Greetings and welcome to the Universal Design for Learning UDL Curriculum and Design Evaluation. We are in Module 5, and what we're going to look at today is how we go through and evaluate units and lessons or activities using the need or by evaluating with a tool that measures the need of students and teachers, also measures the UDL implementation, the 3E framework for online course design, and the collaborative instructional design system. So, in this unit, in the module, we're going to look at Module 5 as a way of trying to evaluate through and also modeling the tool that we would use as a student or as a teacher to try to find this base. So here you can see part of my course lesson with the exception of my missing video yet for my Zoom meeting. But I also have my teacher-generated tool. Um, this tool was created using the best practices of things that have been developed that are cited here, but also different components from the readings that support this whole idea of professional development in a four-step process, looking at all the aspects. This evaluation tool is designed to serve as an evaluation tool to ensure online courses meet the UDL guidelines. So to model this, I wanted to do was look at one of the educational tools that we talked about during our discussion posters, which was Google Drawing. So what I did was I took my PDF file, which would be accessible to the students as well, and I created it as a Google Drawing assignment. So I could go through and model this during this application component of how to use Google Drawing for various systems or various simulations. So the first thing I want to do is look at some of the components here. Of course, the professional development aspect. I would go through and I want to insert text. So on Google Drawing, I would go to Insert and Text Box, and I could draw the text box where I'd like it to be. You have to default the sizes just to make sure you're customized. So the instructor designer name, I'm going to put my name and fill out that information as needed. Also realignment for center or change the font sizes. But again, this is a good practice to be able to figure out how can I use a program like Google Drawing for other things. So as we're doing this assignment, which is going through and evaluating how this program works with UDL and this template, I'm also modeling how I could use Google Drawing for various ways in other coursework as well. So what I'll do is I'll look at the course and I'll look at the first part here, which is evaluation of the tools. The first asks for representation, and what I would do is then be able to go through and insert a shape, an arrow or whatnot. I could put, for instance, an X or a dot where I know what I'm going to be doing. So artifacts. As I look over here in my course module, I look over here in the hot links section, and what I should be able to find here, if the internet's not going to go very slow right now. Uh, right now, I should find a few different artifacts here. One is on universal design. On the second one, that's for 21st century skills. So those are some artifacts that I could go through and read that have different service aspects to this. So I could go through and I could create that arrow. Pictures. Again, going back through and evaluating, what you see here is the actual component of the pictures that I created. These would be different files. I find that using Canvas, also using pictures makes it easier for if you're using it from a mobile device. So these would be the pictures that I would actually have implemented here in my module. So I could go and mark that off as well. Let's move it around here. I could use a control copy and control paste to be able to mark that off. Obviously, I want to go through if I'm doing this on a more professional level or and not in this modeling, I can make it a little bit bigger, but for the sake of being able to show you on the screen, sometimes it gets a little quirky if I try to go through and do the zoom a little bit different when trying to model this program. Graphic organizers will be present, which is obviously here. I have video clips, which will be this component. Audio recordings, that'll be part of the video clips, but not a specific audio recording. There's no lab, but there is a lecture. So I would be able to go through and mark off each component of that. Same thing with engagement. Using a program here like Google Drawing, I could be able to engage with another person. So I put on this teacher-generated form a secondary reviewer because I think it's very important that we look at something because we know how we're making it, but for somebody else to see a different perspective and maybe point out some areas where you might have weaknesses or things that maybe they could even use in professional development. Partner work, that's going to be something, it wasn't embedded in this lesson, but however, I could use it through this whole idea of sharing my Google Doc or my Google Drawing with other students to kind of work at that secondary reviewer if necessary, but it wasn't required in this part of the work. There's manipulatives, which we can use, movement, there's no debates, there's no role player simulation. Expression, there is written response, there's an illustrated response. There's no need in this one for a oral response or whatnot. Cultural considerations, so figure out about the context of ethnicity and or culture of students. That's something that was not embedded in this lesson. However, we could try to find ways to implement that by using various articles from different backgrounds or different cultures, especially the perspective of some of the learning that we're doing. The second step is to evaluate with the 3E framework. How does the tool enhance learning? So again, looking at it from the perspective of being able to use it for multiple components, multiple uses in that sense. How does it extend learning? Well, now I have a new tool that I could use in various directions based off of how I'm using it right now. And how does it empower the student? Well, the empowerment aspect is being able to say, I could utilize this, or now I have the ability to analyze someone else, synthesize the information, come together and come up with a better solution. The second part, or step 3 is to evaluate during using the 21st century skills with the CIDS. One instructional media was used. Again, we're using YouTube right here. This would also be the form for the Zoom meeting that would be embedded inside this course. However, I'm not using that just yet. What 21st skills were reinforced? Well, we have collaboration, we have cooperation, we have things that will prepare the students for using this as a presentation for future opportunities or different classes. What thinkings and applications of the tools were used? Well, again, using Google Drawing as a tool to be able to go through and manipulate different things, different forms, creating different Venn diagrams and such that would be able to show student learning and student progress. And what values were instilled in the lesson? I think communication would be the main thing, especially when we're looking at those discussion boards where we're going back and forth trying to figure out the best way to move forward as a group. The final component I added is the evaluate components of the course, the units and tools. And I thought more of the teaching strategies and best practices that we've learned about before. What type of assessments were used to figure out its learnings here. Again, in this unit, in this module, if I go back here, I could go see that the actual assessment component, move myself on the screen here, is going to be the challenge for the teacher to go through and now manipulate their own or create their own. I have a model link where they would have their own copy. They would simply click on the link and be able to modify that copy right there, but also the screenshot of what we're looking at. So the practice application component of the same assignment would be there. What modifications are available to students on this assessment? Like I said before about Google Classroom or Google Drawing, I could put an audio or a video file or an audio file inside of this lecture so that I could support that in the assignment, meaning that I might be able to explain each component rather than just typing in the information. I can manipulate and move those components. How is differentiation embedded? Well, again, the premise of UDL is for each learner to present their information in the way they can by meeting the goal of the unit. What social, emotional, and character education is present? One of the big pushes right now for modern education, especially in the online component, is interaction or collaboration. So this would be the whole idea of having a Zoom internet meeting or a Zoom meeting where we could talk about the different situations we ran into. And also the reflection component that we see in the discussion board. How do we interact with that to encourage our comrades or our peers about how to do better or how they can improve different components of their lesson? And then finally, the last part is a reflection piece. I think it's important as educators when we look at these components, even though these rubrics or charts or tools might be very rigid, what might we want to do a little bit different that maybe doesn't fall in line with the different components of this evaluation tool? What recommendations would you have for future lessons and interactions? And how do you move through that? And finally, there's just a spot for other notes, which means, what else did I learn during this section? So this lesson right here would be the component of me explaining how I use this evaluation tool. I modeled a little bit by clicking in some of this. Unfortunately, I can't do it all because it's hard to read and be able to model on the screen at the same time. But if I ever use that Zoom tool, which was kind of crazy because on Google, if I could show you here real quick, when I use Google Drawing, when I try to zoom, It's not going to let me now because I'm on the screen. But when I do try to zoom, it actually works in opposite, meaning that if I zoom in further, it actually moves out the screen bigger, but the toolbar actually goes away, which makes it a little bit more challenging. So again, it's a little quirk of the system, but this is something that we could use to model those different applications.